The Glass Mountain, extended sleep story, right? Settling 10, because what I'm about to tell you will absolutely blow your mind. Picture this: an entire kingdom trapped in eternal winter. Children growing up, never seeing a single flower bloom, and one lad with nothing but a pair of ice skates who's about to change everything. You think you know how this ends. Trust me, you haven't got a clue what's coming. Now then, let's get you properly comfortable first, shall we? Whether you're tucked up in bed or finding your cozy spot for the evening, this is your time to completely let go. All those thoughts swirling about in your head, work stress, tomorrow's plans, that conversation you keep replaying, just give yourself permission to set all of that aside for now. It can wait until morning. I promise you that. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and let's focus on your breathing for a moment. Feel that gentle rise and fall of your chest, that natural rhythm your body knows so well. There's something quite magical about breathing, isn't there? It's the one thing that connects us all, the rhythm of life itself flowing through you right now. Let's slow it down just a touch. Nothing forced, just allowing each breath to become a bit deeper, a bit more relaxed. As you breathe in, imagine you're drawing in pure calm, pure peace. And as you breathe out, feel any tension just melting away like snow in springtime. Now, with each breath in, I want you to silently say to yourself, I am. And with each breath out, calm. I am calm. Feel those words settling into your body like a gentle warmth spreading through you. I am calm. Let that become your truth right now, in this moment. Keep that same peaceful rhythm. But now let's shift to I am peaceful. Breathe. Eat in, breathe it out. I am peaceful. Feel that serenity washing over you like the gentlest tide, reaching every corner of your being, every muscle, every thought. And finally, as you continue this beautiful, calming rhythm, I am sleepy. I am sleepy. Let that drowsiness embrace you like the softest blanket, welcoming you into this story, into this journey we're about to take together. Now, imagine with me a land so vast it stretches beyond the horizon in every direction you can see. Picture endless rolling hills, covered in the purest white snow, forests of evergreen trees, heavy with frost that sparkles like diamonds in the pale winter light. The sky above is a canvas of soft grays and whites, with clouds that seem to hang low and heavy, as if they're sharing secrets with the sleeping earth below. And there, rising from the very heart of this frozen landscape, stands the most extraordinary sight you could ever imagine, a mountain unlike any other. It's not made of rock or stone. Oh no! This mountain appears to be carved from the purest crystal, smooth as glass, and twice as brilliant. It catches what little light filters through the winter clouds and throws it back in 1,000 different directions, creating rainbows that dance across the snow-covered ground. This mountain seems to reach up and up, its peak disappearing into the low-hanging clouds, as if it's trying to touch the very heavens themselves. And there's something about it, something that makes you feel both drawn to it and slightly afraid. It's beautiful, yes, but there's a mystery there, a story waiting to be told. And that story my dear listener, begins long, long ago. Once upon a time, in what feels like another world entirely, there existed a kingdom that was the envy of all its neighbors. Picture rolling green meadows, dotted with wildflowers that painted the landscape in brilliant yellows, deep purples, and vibrant reds. Imagine crystal clear streams that bubbled and laughed as they wound their way through valleys where children played and lovers walked hand in hand. These summers in this kingdom were absolutely glorious. The sun would rise early and set late, painting the sky in the most magnificent oranges and pinks you've ever seen. Families would gather in their gardens for evening meals, the air warm and sweet, with the scent of jasmine and honeysuckle. Children would run barefoot through soft grass, chasing fireflies as darkness gently fell, their laughter echoing across the peaceful countryside. Spring was a time of pure magic, when the whole world seemed to wake up from a long, restful sleep. Trees would burst into bloom overnight, covering themselves in delicate pink and white blossoms that would drift on gentle breezes like nature's own confetti. The air would be filled with the songs of birds returning from their winter journeys, and everywhere you looked, new life was beginning. Even autumn had its own special beauty in this kingdom. The leaves would transform into a tapestry of gold and crimson, creating a carpet so lovely that people would travel from far and wide just to walk through the forests and feel that satisfying crunch beneath their feet. The harvest festivals were legendary, with tables groaning under the weight of the most delicious fruits and vegetables you could imagine. But winter was something special too. It would arrive gently, like a quiet friend, bringing just enough snow to make everything look clean and fresh and new. The cold was crisp and invigorating, perfect for long walks, where your breath formed little clouds that danced in the frosty air. And then, just when you'd had enough of winter's beauty, spring would come creeping back, and the cycle would begin all over again. The people of this kingdom lived in harmony with these natural rhythms. They planted their crops in spring, tended them through the warm summer months, harvested in autumn, and used the quiet winter time to rest, to tell stories by the fire, to plan and dream about the year ahead. Life had a beautiful predictability to it, a sense of order and purpose that made everyone feel secure and content. The king of this land was a good and wise ruler, beloved by his people. He was the sort of man who would walk among his subjects, not with grand processions and fanfare, but quietly stopping to chat with farmers about their crops, asking merchants about their trades, playing games with children in the village squares. His greatest joy was his daughter, Princess Leona, a young woman with eyes as blue as summer skies and hair like spun gold. Princess Leona was not your typical royal. Mind you, while other princesses might spend their days in drawing rooms, learning embroidery and practicing their curts, Leona could be found in the castle gardens, her hands dirty from planting flowers, or in the kitchens, learning to bake bread from the castle cooks. She had a curiosity about the world that couldn't be contained within palace walls, and a kindness that drew people to her like flowers to sunlight. But even the most perfect kingdoms can face darkness, and this one was no exception. There lived, in a tower on the outskirts of the realm, a sorcerer whose heart had grown cold and bitter over the years. Once, long ago, he had been a friend to the king, a trusted advisor who used his magical abilities to help the kingdom prosper. But power as it often does, had corrupted him, and jealousy had poisoned his soul. This sorcerer, let's call him Malakar, for that was his name, had become obsessed with Princess Leona, not with love, mind you, but with possession. He felt that someone as beautiful and special as she should belong to someone as powerful as he believed himself to be. When the king refused to give his daughter's hand in marriage to this twisted man, Maloka's rage knew no bounds. The confrontation between the king and the sorcerer was the stuff of legends. It took place in the great hall of the castle, with thunder rolling across the sky outside, as if nature itself was angry about what was to come. The king stood firm in his refusal, protecting his daughter's right to choose her own destiny. Malakar's fury was terrible to behold, his eyes blazing with magical fire, his voice echoing off the stone walls like the roar of a hurricane. And then, in a moment that would change everything, Malakar spoke the curse that would trap the kingdom in eternal winter. The words he used were in an ancient language, dark and terrible, and as they left his lips, the very air in the castle seemed to freeze. The king felt the cold seeping into his bones, saw frost beginning to form on the windows, watched in horror as his breath became visible in the suddenly frigid air. But Malakar wasn't finished. With another terrible incantation, he caused the glass mountain to rise from the earth itself, a prison of ice and crystal that would trap the king and his daughter forever. The mountain erupted from the ground with a sound like the world breaking apart, shooting up into the sky until its peak was lost in the clouds. And at its summit, impossible to reach, he created a castle of ice where the royal family would remain isolated from their kingdom, watching helplessly as their land froze around them. The transformation didn't happen all at once. At first, the people of the kingdom thought it was just an unusually cold spell, the sort of weather that sometimes comes late in the season. But as days turned to weeks, and weeks turned to months, and still the snow kept falling, and the temperatures kept dropping, they began to realize that something was terribly, terribly wrong. The flowers that had bloomed so beautifully in the castle gardens withered and died, their petals blackening with frost before they could even fall. The streams that had bubbled so cheerfully began to slow, then stopped entirely, becoming ribbons of ice that stretched across the landscape like frozen tears. The birds that had filled the air with their songs fell silent, either flying away to warmer lands or simply disappearing altogether. Children who had been born just before the curse hit were among the last to remember what warmth felt like. They could recall, dimly, the feeling of sun on their faces, the texture of grass beneath their feet, the sweet taste of fresh berries picked straight from the bush. But as the years passed, even these memories began to fade, becoming more like dreams than actual recollections. And then there were the children born after the curse took hold. These little ones, bless their hearts, had never known anything but winter. They grew up in a world where the ground was always frozen, where breath always came in little puffs of vapor, where the only green they ever saw was the deep, unchanging green of evergreen trees. Their parents and grandparents would try to describe spring to them, painting word pictures of meadows full of daisies and buttercups, of warm rain that fell gently on your skin instead of the stinging ice pellets they knew. They detailed tales of summer days so warm you could lie on the grass and feel the earth's ice heat soaking into your back, of autumn afternoons when the air smelled of apples and wood smoke and possibility, But how do you explain color to someone who has only ever seen the world in shades of white and gray and deep green? How do you describe the feeling of diving into a cool lake on a hot day to a child who's never felt heat? How do you make someone understand the joy of watching a seed you planted push its way up through rich, dark soil when the ground has been frozen solid for as long as they can remember? The children listened to these stories with wonder, trying their best to imagine these magical seasons their elders spoke of. In their minds, they created pictures of these warm, colorful times, but they were like trying to imagine a completely different world. It was as if their parents were telling them fairy tales about lands that existed only in dreams and wishes. Some of the children, the ones with the most imagination, would play games pretending it was spring. They'd gather around the evergreen trees and pretend the needles were flowers, making up elaborate stories about gardens full of colors they'd never seen. They'd lie in the snow and close their eyes, trying to imagine it was soft grass, trying to picture what it would feel like to have warm sunlight streaming down on their faces. The adults in the kingdom never stopped hoping that somehow, someday, their world would return to normal. They'd scan the skies each morning, looking for any sign that the weather might be changing, that perhaps today would be the day the sun would break through the clouds with real warmth. But day after day, month after month, year after year, the winter persisted, relentless and unchanging. Life went on because life always does. People adapted, as humans always do. When faced with impossible circumstances, they learned to build better fires, to weave warmer clothes, to preserve food through the endless winter months. Children still laughed and played, just in different ways than children before the curse had done. Love still bloomed between young people, even in the midst of all that ice and snow. But always, always, there was the question: why had this happened to them? What had they done to deserve this eternal winter? And more importantly, was there any way to break the curse that held their land in its icy grip? The answer to that question seemed to lie with the glass mountain that had appeared at the same time as the curse. Everyone in the kingdom could see it from wherever they were. It was that massive, that imposing. During the day, it got what little sunlight managed to filter through the perpetual clouds and threw it back in brilliant flashes that could be seen for miles. At night, it seemed to glow with its own inner light, a mysterious, otherworldly beacon in the darkness. Stories began to spread about the mountain, as stories always do. Some said it was hollow inside, filled with caverns of ice that sang in the wind. Others claimed it was solid all the way through, a single massive crystal that had been pulled up from deep within the earth. Children dared each other to walk closer to its base, though none were ever brave enough to actually touch its glassy surface. But the most persistent story, the one that was told and retold around every fireside in the kingdom, was the tale of the king and Princess Leona trapped at its summit. People claimed that on very clear days, if you looked very hard, you could see a glimmer at the top of the mountain that might be the ice castle where the royal family was imprisoned. Whether this was true or just wishful thinking, no one could say for certain. But the story gave people hope, and hope was something they desperately needed. As word of the trapped princess spread, brave men began to arrive from distant lands, drawn by the challenge and the promise of winning a royal bride. These adventurers came from all walks of life, Noble knights in shining armor, wealthy merchants with their own small armies, humble farmers who had nothing to lose and everything to gain. They all had one thing in common: the absolute confidence that they would be the one to succeed where others had failed. Each would-be hero approached the mountain with his own strategy. Some came with elaborate gear, ropes and pulleys, ladders and climbing apparatus that looked like they could scale any obstacle. Others relied on magical items they'd acquire in their travels, enchanted boots that were supposed to give them sure footing on any surface, or gloves that promised to let them grip even the slipperiest ice. The attempts were always the same, though the brave adventurer would approach the base of the glass mountain with great fanfare, often followed by crowds of villagers who had come to watch what they hoped would be their kingdom's salvation. The climber would begin his ascent, sometimes making good progress at first, finding tiny imperfections in the glass surface that gave him handholds and footholds. But the mountain seemed to have its own defenses. The higher the climber went, the more treacherous it became. The glass grew smoother and more slippery, offering fewer and fewer places to grip. The wind picked up, howling around the mountain with a force that threatened to tear anyone from its surface. And then, inevitably, would come the bird. But no one who had seen it could quite agree on exactly what it looked like, other than that it was enormous and white and absolutely terrifying. Some described it as an eagle with wingspan broader than a house. Others swore it was more like a giant owl, with eyes like burning coals and talons that could tear through armor like paper. A few claimed it was something altogether more supernatural, a creature made of ice and wind and malice, with no true physical form at all. Whatever it was, the bird served as the mountain's guardian, and it was utterly ruthless in its duty. The moment any climber reached a certain height on the mountain's surface, the creature would appear as if from nowhere. It would swoop and dive at the intruder, beating its massive wings to create winds that made climbing impossible, striking with claws and beak, until the would-be rescuer had no choice but to let go and slide all the way back down to the bottom. Some men tried to fight the bird, bringing swords and spears and even crossbows to battle the creature. But how do you fight something while clinging to a vertical surface of slippery ice? The moment they let go of the mountain to draw their weapons, they would begin to slide, and the bird would harry them all the way down, ensuring they could gain no purchase on the smooth surface. After each failed attempt, the defeated climber would pick himself up from the snow at the mountain's base, usually bruised and battered but alive, and trudge away in defeat. Word of each failure spread quickly through the kingdom and beyond, but somehow this never seemed to discourage the next hopeful hero from trying his luck. The failures began to take on an almost ritualistic quality. Villagers would gather to watch each new attempt, half hoping for success and half resigned to seeing yet another brave soul added to the long list of those who had tried and failed. Bets were made about how high each climber would get before the bird appeared, about how long they'd be able to hold on once the creature began its attack. Some attempts were more spectacular than others. Of course, there was the knight who made it nearly halfway up the mountain before the bird struck, his armor clanking and ringing as he slid all the way back down in what sounded like an avalanche of metal. There was the acrobat who actually managed to dodge the bird's first few attacks, dancing across the mountain's surface with incredible grace before finally being overwhelmed by the creature's relentless assault. One particularly memorable attempt was made by a wealthy lord who arrived with a small army of men, thinking that surely numbers would succeed where individual effort had failed. But the bird proved more than capable of dealing with multiple climbers swooping back and forth between them with supernatural speed and precision until all of them were sliding back down the mountain in a tangle of arms and legs and climbing gear. Each failure added to the mountainous legend and to the growing belief that perhaps it truly was impossible to reach the summit. The glass mountain began to seem less like an obstacle to be overcome, and more like a fact of nature, as unchangeable as the sunrise or the tides. Parents began to tell their children not to waste time dreaming about climbing it, to focus instead on making the best life they could in this endless winter. But dreams, as we all know, have a way of persisting even in the most hopeless circumstances. And in a small village at the very foot of the glass mountain, there lived a young man who had never quite learned to accept the impossible. This young man's name was Jamie, and he had grown up literally in the shadow of the great crystal peak. From his bedroom window, he could see the mountain's slopes catching the morning light, and it was the last thing he saw before sleep claimed him each night. While other children in the village learned to avert their eyes from the impossible challenge that loomed over them, Jamie found himself drawn to it, fascinated by its beauty and mystery. Jamie's family was not wealthy by any means. His father was a woodcutter who spent his days in the frozen forests, chopping down the dead trees that the eternal winter had claimed and bringing them back to the village for firewood. It was hard, dangerous work, made even more difficult by the fact that the wood had to be cut from trees that were often frozen solid. Their sap turned to ice in their veins. His mother took in washing and mending for the other families in the village, her hands red and chapped from working with water that was always on the verge of freezing. She would sit by the fire in the evenings, her fingers flying as she repaired torn clothes and patched holes in worn fabric, humming softly to herself old songs from before the curse, songs about spring and summer and growing things. Despite their humble circumstances, Jamie's parents had raised him with love and kindness and a deep sense of right and wrong. They taught him to work hard, to be honest in all his dealings, and to never give up hope even when things seemed darkest. Most importantly, they taught him that every person has value, regardless of their station in life, and that sometimes the most unlikely heroes can accomplish the most extraordinary things. Jamie was not a large young man. In fact, he was rather slight of build, with sandy hair that never seemed to want to stay properly combed and brown eyes that sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. What he lacked in size, though he made up for in determination and cleverness. He had a way of looking at problems from angles that other people missed, of finding solutions that were so simple they seemed obvious once he pointed them out. From the time he was small, Jamie had been fascinated by the stories of the trapped princess. While other children played games of knights and dragons, Jamie would lie in bed at night, staring up at the glass mountain through his window, trying to figure out how someone might actually reach its summit. He would sketch diagrams on pieces of bark with bits of charcoal, working out angles and distances and possibilities. As he grew older, this fascination only deepened. He would watch each new adventurer make his attempt, studying their techniques, analyzing their failures, trying to understand what they were doing wrong. He noticed that they all seemed to approach the problem in the same way, trying to climb straight up the mountain using brute force and conventional climbing methods. But Jamie had grown up in this frozen world, and he understood ice in ways that visitors from warmer climates simply couldn't. He had spent countless hours skating on the village pond, learning to read the ice, to understand its moods and its properties. He knew how it formed, how it melted, how it could be both incredibly hard and surprisingly fragile, depending on the circumstances. Most importantly, Jamie had developed a skill that none of the other would-be rescuers possessed. He could skate on almost any surface that had even the slightest bit of ice on it. Years of practicing on the village pond, of skating in conditions that would have sent other people running for warm fires and dry clothes, had given him an almost supernatural ability to maintain his balance on slippery surfaces. The idea came to him gradually, over many months of watching and thinking and dreaming. Instead of trying to climb the glass mountain using traditional methods, what if someone could skate up its surface? The mountain was, after all, made entirely of ice, and if a person could keep moving, could maintain momentum, perhaps the bird wouldn't be able to target them as easily as it could a stationary climber. It was such a simple idea that Jamie almost dismissed it at first. Surely someone else would have thought of it before. But the more he considered it, the more sense it made. All those failed adventurers had approached the mountain as if it were made of rock, bringing equipment designed for traditional climbing. None of them had thought to treat it as what it actually was, the world's largest skating rink, turned on its side. The plan that formed in Jamie's mind was almost absurdly simple. He would strap on his ice skates, the same ones he'd been using since he was a child, worn and comfortable and perfectly fitted to his feet. He would approach the mountain not with ropes and pittons and elaborate gear, but with just the basics. Some food, some water, and the skills he'd been developing all his life. Of course, the plan had some rather obvious flaws, which Jamie was well aware of. How would he deal with the bird when it appeared? What would he do if he actually managed to reach the summit? What gift could he possibly offer to a princess that would be worthy of her hand in marriage? These were questions he didn't have answers to, but somehow that didn't seem to matter. For the first time in his life, he had a goal that excited him, a challenge that seemed worthy of his best efforts. Jamie spent weeks preparing for his attempt, though his preparations looked nothing like those of the adventurers who had come before him. Instead of gathering elaborate equipment, he focused on perfecting his skating technique. He practiced on the steepest slopes he could find, learning to maintain his balance even when the incline was so sharp it seemed impossible. He studied the mountain's surface from a distance, trying to identify the best route to the summit. He watched the way the light played across its surface at different times of day, looking for patterns that might indicate variations in the ice's texture or thickness. He paid careful attention to the wind patterns around the peak, noting when the air was calmest and when it was most turbulent. Most importantly, Jamie worked on his fitness and his mental preparation. He knew that attempting to skate up the glass mountain would require not just skill but also enormous physical endurance and the kind of mental toughness that would allow him to keep going when everything in his body was screaming at him to stop. His parents, bless them, were initially horrified when Jamie told them about his plan. They had watched so many brave men fail in their attempts to reach the princess, and the thought of their son joining that list of failures was almost too much to bear. They pleaded with him to reconsider, to find a nice girl in the village and settle down to a quiet, safe life. But as Jamie explained his reasoning, as he showed them the careful thought he'd put into his approach, they began to see that this wasn't just a young man's foolish dream. Their son had genuinely identified something that all those other adventures had missed. It was still incredibly dangerous, still likely to end in failure. But there was a logic to it that gave them hope. His mother, practical as always, insisted on packing him a proper meal for the journey. A loaf of the sturdy bread she baked each week, some dried meat, and a bottle of water. She wrapped everything carefully in oiled cloth to keep it dry and secure. A severe tears ran silently down her cheeks, though she tried to hide them from her son. His father, meanwhile, spent the evening checking and rechecking Jamie's skates, making sure the blades were properly sharpened and the straps were strong and secure. They were good skates, despite their age, well made and lovingly maintained over the years. If Jamie was going to attempt this impossible feat, at least he would do it with equipment that wouldn't fail him. The night before his planned attempt, Jamie lay in bed staring up at the glass mountain through his window. The peak seemed to glow in the moonlight, beautiful and mysterious and utterly intimidating. For a moment, doubt crept into his mind. What was he thinking? Who was he to believe he could succeed where so many others had failed? He was just a woodcutter's son from a tiny village. He had no training as a hero, no magical weapons or enchanted armor. But then he remembered something his mother had told him when he was just a small child. Something about how the most important adventures often begin with the smallest steps. And he thought about Princess Leona, trapped alone in her ice castle, watching year after year as hopeful rescuers failed to reach her. If there was even the slightest chance that his plan might work, didn't he owe it to her to try? As dawn broke over the village, Jamie dressed himself carefully and quietly. He pulled on his warmest clothes, wool pants, and a thick sweater his mother had knitted, sturdy boots that would serve him until he switched to his skates, a heavy coat that would protect him from the wind. He packed his simple supplies in a canvas rucksack that had belonged to his father. His parents were awake to see him off, despite the early hour. They hugged him tightly, his mother whispering prayers for his safety, his father gripping his shoulders and looking into his eyes with a mixture of pride and terror. There were no grand speeches, no dramatic farewells, just a family saying goodbye, hoping it wouldn't be for the last time. As Jamie stepped out into the crisp morning air, he discovered that word of his plan had somehow spread through the village overnight. Despite the early hour, people had gathered along the path that led to the glass mountain. Some had come to wish him luck, others simply to witness what they were sure would be just another failure. The crowd that followed him was smaller than those that had gathered for some of the more famous adventurers who had made attempts on the mountain. After all, Jamie was just a local boy, not a famous knight or wealthy lord. But there was something about him that morning, something about the quiet confidence in his step and the determined set of his jaw that made people take notice. As they walked through the forest toward the mountain's base, the trees around them stood like silent sentinels, their branches heavy with ice and snow. The only sounds were the crunch of footsteps on the frozen ground and the occasional whispered conversation between villagers. Even the air seemed to hold its breath, as if the entire world was waiting to see what would happen next. And there, ahead of them, the glass mountain rose like something out of a dream or a nightmare, depending on your perspective. In the morning light, its surface seemed to shimmer and dance, throwing off reflections that hurt to look at directly. It was beautiful, There was no denying that. But it was also clearly impossible to climb using any conventional method. This was it then. This was the moment Jamie had been preparing for. The moment that would either vindicate his careful planning or add his name to the long list of those who had tried and failed. He could feel the eyes of the villagers on him, could sense their mixture of hope and skepticism. But as Jamie approached the base of the mountain and began to prepare for his attempt, all of that faded away. The crowd, the doubts, the fear, it all became background noise. There was only him, the mountain, and the challenge that lay ahead. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your night. May you find deep peace and restful sleep. Wishing you the sweetest dreams. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.